Hello everybody, Ian, Starship Adventures, and today I'm going to talk about something that I really hope that maybe gets the attention of somebody out there in one of these large HF radio production companies, that it might strike a nerve with them. I don't know, but today's message is for everyone, but it's really for anyone over at Yaesu or Kenwood or Icom. I love all three of the brands, don't get me wrong, and they make some of the best equipment money can buy. But let me tell you something, lately especially, they've gotten to the point where it needs to have 1,000 buttons and 1,000 features, and it needs to talk on 1,000 bands in order for it to be sold. And then when it's finally sold, it's $2,000, $4,000, $5,000. And that's just ridiculous. This is a hobby. And I think I think they're doing this on purpose. I don't think they missed this. But what they want you to do is they want to give you a radio that does everything. And what I've been saying for a while now is I don't want a radio that does everything. I want a radio that transmits and receives. I don't even care. It can have a little display on the front. I don't care. I want it to hook into my computer. Now, I know Flex Radio is already starting to produce something like this, but like everything else, it's increasingly expensive. There's no way that many of us can afford this kind of thing. So what I'm trying to propose here is we need to start a line of radios that is basic radios, that are basic radios. Now, I'm telling you, the Chinese are going to do this for you if you don't do it yourself, okay? They're already starting to, Zygu and some of these other ones, already starting to come out with transmitting SDRs and things like that. And it's not going to be long before they get this going on HF. And it's going to, unfortunately, I think it's going to be very harmful to the three companies I mentioned, because they're going to start to take a lot of that market too. Baofeng and TYT and Radioddity and these companies have managed to take probably 2/3 of the VHF, UHF sales from these three big companies. And they all make great radios. Whether you're talking Chinese or Japanese, they are all at this point pretty good radios. And so who's going to go spend $300 on a Yaesu or an Icom or a Kenwood portable when you can get a Baofeng, a really nice Baofeng, like my 25 over there, my UV25? You get a really, really nice radio for $50 that's rugged, that has 10 or 11 watts, that talks on 3 bands and receives on 6, a lot more than most of the other radios will do. So the same thing needs to happen and is going to happen with HF radios if our three big companies here that we like don't do something about this. The newest radios that just came out have more buttons and more features, and they do more things. I think some of them make coffee now. It's ridiculous. And they come with all these different things. You can add this and you can add that. I wrote about a radio just the other day, and I'm not going to call it out by number or company, but it was a $2,000 radio. It's a $2,000 radio, and it only puts out like 10 watts, and it's just ridiculous. Why would anyone spend this kind of money on a radio that's only going to put out 10 watts? Oh, but it does all of these other things. It does D-Star, it does Fusion, it does whatever it does. It had all these extra things that it does. You know, most of us don't care about D-Star or System Fusion or DMR for that matter, which sounds like shit. Nobody cares about these. I'm surprised the number of hams that don't. Most hams tried to get into digital modes and realized it was a complicated mess. And when you finally got it working, the quality was not what was promised. And so they've kind of gone away from that. And so to put that in every radio you're making now, I think is a waste of time and money. I think you should put out a radio that has 5 knobs on the front, a simple display, like a Baofeng radio would have. The new color display they've got would be all you would need just to show the frequency and the power output. and then it connects to a computer. The computer does everything. And you can make that for $500 and make it put out 100 watts. And there you go. You would sell those all day long. But you won't do it because you're invested in the features. You know what? Number one feature that a ham radio person cares about, I want it to be able to hear. I want it to have a really good receiver. The second thing that a ham radio wants a radio to do, you know what the second feature is? They want it to transmit cleanly and clearly on frequency without spurious transmissions, and they want it to transmit the power that was advertised. That's what they want. What's the third feature they want? Well, some want a waterfall, but you can achieve that on the computer. Some want most features can be achieved on the computer that's hooked to the radio. We don't need the radio to have everything in the kitchen sink in it anymore. The computer is quicker, easier to deal with, and it's a lot simpler to use a mouse and a keyboard than it is these radios. I love these radios. I got an Icom 756 Pro here. I love that radio, but it's got 1,000 buttons on the front. There's still buttons on there. I don't even know what they do. I don't use every single one of them. There's about 35 or 40 features in that radio that I'll never, ever, ever use. And that's a 15, 20-year-old radio. So I think the whole idea here is they've been doing this for a while. They've been making these very complicated radios. I bought that used for $600 or $800. Why are we doing this to ourselves? All we need is a $400 or $500 box that transmits really good and receives really good and hooks up to the computer with really good software that allows me to do all of the same things maybe, or some of the same things through the software. Why does the computer need to process the sound? Why can't the sound come out of your computer speakers processed by the computer? Why can't everything that is done on the radio just be done on the computer? And there's already companies starting to put these radios out. The problem is they're way too expensive right now. Some of these radios are thousands and thousands of dollars, and they don't even have the buttons or the screen on the front. The compromise here is build us the most basic radio that you can build and allow us to hook it up to our computer and allow us to get the raw audio out of it, the raw signal off the radio, so that we can have our own waterfalls. We can have our own programming on the computer. See, this is what it's all about with ham radio. I don't want all that crap on the radio. I want it on my computer. Okay? And I think a lot of these companies are still, when they put out a survey of what people want, they're talking to people from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that have been ham radio people a while. And they're used to the radio that has a button for everything on the front. And as we learned a long time ago, you can't fly spaceships if you have a button for every function. You have to have a computer. You have to have menuing. You have to have visual displays. And just like that, that's where we want to go with these radios. So finally, as I'm ending this video up, I ask you, please make a basic $500 100-watt HF 80 through 6, doesn't need to be a shack in the box, no digital modes, and have a very, very advanced computer interface for it, and a dynamite receiver, a transmitter that's right on target, and you'll have a product that'll sell, I'm telling you. But I think you're stuck on these big $5,000 rigs and getting people into financing and payment plans. And I'm telling you, if you don't come up with it soon, the Chinese are going to beat you to it, just like they did with the HF market and like they're doing with the VHF, UHF mobile market right now. They're edging into that market wildly right now, and they're getting ready to go into the basic HF market with the computer interface. Guys, don't let them do this to you. If you want to beat them at their own game. Come out with this first. Make a radio that we can afford. I want a radio that's Yaesu. I want a radio that's Icom. I want Kenwood. I've got them all three right here behind me. I love them. But I can't spend $3,000 or $4,000 on a radio. So I buy old ones. which I really like doing as well. But please, if you've ever listened to anybody, just listen to this quick little piece of advice. Make us a $500 radio that we can buy easily, quickly, connected to our computer, software to go with it. It doesn't need to have a lot of bells and whistles, and it will sell all day long. And if you made a 200-watt version for a couple $100 more, that's a feature people would pay for. All right, so there you go. That's what I got. My name's Ian. This is Starship Adventures. Loving ham radio, but always looking for a better way. And there you go. So hope to see you down the log or maybe on the next adventure. My name's Ian, Starship Adventures. We'll see you next time.